Hey everybody, coming to you from San Diego, Petco Park behind me. We'll be there for 4 games this week. This loomed as a huge series for a while, even like right before the trade deadline. This looked like it would be a huge series, a chance for the Giants to make up some ground on a team that they were going to be chasing. Now it's not as important. They're well behind the Padres. It's going to be impossible for them to catch them. They're coming off a 2-7 homestand, which was really fascinating in one way that they played really well at the beginning of it. They played really well on Sunday. Between that, as bad as they've been at home, and you start seeing things like first time since 1901 that they've lost this many home games in a stretch, and second time in Oracle Park's history that they have lost 6 consecutive home series. But they did finish it on a high note on Sunday. Overall, though, a bad home stretch. And two things that are pretty simple here that stand out. They're hitting 200 at home with runners in scoring position, which is the second worst that they've ever been as a franchise. That's been a huge issue, obviously. The other issue, one thing I think we saw during the Rays series that was very predictable, but this is kind of knew this was going to happen. They lost a ton of home games right before the deadline, and that led to trading Tyler Rogers, trading Camilo Doval. And now they're losing some home games where you feel like it'd be pretty automatic that they would win that game if they had Rogers in the eighth inning. I think Saturday was an example of that. Verlander, 7 strong, 7 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts. Looks as good as he has all year, better than he has all year. And you really wish you could just throw Tyler Rogers out there in the eighth inning and feel like that's automatic from there. But this is the situation they're in right now. This is what happened because of all those losses before the deadline. They are falling out of it pretty quickly. Playoff odds right around 2-3% the last few days. This is a big week in a weird way. I know it sounds strange to say for a team that has had a really hard time winning games recently, but just in terms of like their flickering hopes and the things that like Matt Chapman talked on Friday night about, there's still some games ahead of them. There's still a quarter of the season left. This is a big week though, just in terms of that. If you are hopeful that there's some sort of run that can at least make it so that September you're like trying to chase down a wild card spot. I think this is like the biggest week just because they're playing the Padres, they go to Milwaukee after this. The Brewers like have not lost a game, it seems like in forever. They did lose Sunday, but other than that, they won like 14 in a row, something like that. So this is a really tough road trip. At the same time, the Mets are they have an easier week schedule wise. The Reds have an easier week schedule wise. So what has been kind of like you could hope to have a good week at some point and get back into that race for a third wild card spot. Like this is a week where potentially they could drop out if they don't play better baseball. And I think one thing Giants people have been saying is like, look, we play some of the teams we're chasing. That's actually not true anymore. They're trying to chase down the Mets, they're trying to chase down the Reds. They're done with those teams. So they have to make up ground against the Padres, against the Brewers, against the Cubs coming up. That'll be difficult. So that's what's ahead of them. September, the schedule is actually pretty light, like multiple series against the Cardinals, multiple series against the Diamondbacks, multiple series against the Rockies. So if they could somehow tread water here, they would have a shot in September to at least make it interesting. If they can go on a little bit of run, they have not played like a team that's capable of that. But just if you have not fully stuck the fork in this team, 6 games behind the Mets right now, 4.5 behind the Reds. I don't think either one of those teams is that scary. So that's what's ahead of the Giants immediately this week. Some important games against the Padres and the Brewers. But beyond that, I wanted to take a look at like kind of what happens here, given the way they played. And I wrote this last week after Wednesday's game and after a really, really ugly series against the Padres at home, just kind of what's ahead of them and what they can accomplish. There's still a lot of baseball left and still some things they can accomplish here. And I'm going to start with the obvious question, the one I get all the time, the one, Cole Kuiper and I at Giants Talk, we put out mailbag requests and I get so many questions. The two things I get the most questions about, Bob Melvin's job status, which I think is something that's really there's no point discussing until the end of the season, even though they played horrible baseball. I think Buster's going to be patient in deciding what happens with Bob and his staff. More importantly, is what happens with the staff. But the other thing I get asked about all the time is Bryce Eldridge. I know the Giants have been having more conversations behind the scenes about whether it's time and whether you know, the way they have played, whether that makes it obvious. Like just run him out there, just let him get his feet wet, let him get that first hit, that first home run, let his parents come out here, get all of that out of the way. At the same time, I know there are a lot of people in important positions in the organization who wish he would just finish out the AAA year and continue to develop there. And the home runs, the power is incredible. The guys I've talked to who have been there in AAA recently, they're all kind of in awe at the power and especially the power to left field. The flip side of that, he's striking out in exactly a third of his at-bats at AAA. So you know if that happens in AAA, you know what's going to happen when you get to the big league level. So that Eldridge conversation ongoing. Giants still trying to figure out what they want to do down the stretch here with him. I will say everything I've heard, even the people who wish he would spend the rest of the year in AAA, they rave about the work ethic, they rave about the makeup. He's done a really nice job of improving defensively and working hard there at first base. So we'll see where that goes with him. There are a lot of other guys on that team who are potential options down the stretch if this continues going this way record-wise for the Giants, and there are no real indications that it won't. Some familiar names: Marco Luciano, Luis Matos, Wade Meckler. These are guys who are kind of running out of the clock's running out a little bit on these guys in terms of options, in terms of their future here in San Francisco. So that would be one way to maybe take advantage of this last 40 games or so here is see what you have. And I've said this on the podcast, I've written this. They may have made up their mind. The front office is not going to come out and say it, but internally they may have made up their mind on some of these guys. We haven't seen Luciano all year, so maybe they just have figured out what they have there and doesn't matter to them. But if not, this is a chance to get some at bats for some of those guys. Tyler Fitzgerald, he fits in. He looks like he's back in a super utility role with Casey Schmidt settling in at second base. A chance for him to play some outfield, get comfortable there. Grant McRae, we've seen some of him. Still a lot of strikeouts, but somebody who, again, a younger guy, potentially a part of the future. We've seen Keaton win in the bullpen. He's had some shoulder issues this year, but he's getting a chance here to show what he can do. And then Hayden Birdsong, I think, is the obvious one here. It's been a little inconsistent. He's given up some runs in AAA, but also the command has been better than it was the last time the Giants saw him. But it does feel like at some point they should take another look at him and figure out if he is somebody who's going to go into camp next year fighting for a rotation spot, which they hope. But they should take another look at that. The other group there is the new guys. We have seen Drew Gilbert really slow start at the plate, but then hits his first home run on Sunday. Defensively, he's looked very comfortable in right field. I think the other guy in that trade, Blade Tidwell, I think 100% we're going to see him in the next few weeks. He's pitched very well in AAA. 3 starts, 16 innings, 3 earned runs, 23 strikeouts, just 5 walks. So he's somebody that is on their radar. Kaiwei Teng will start Tuesday here, but if he struggles the next time around, I mean, Birdsong's in that mix, obviously, Hunt's in that mix, but I think Tidwell is somebody they're anxious to see at the big league level. And then Jesus Rodriguez, he's somebody I get asked about a lot. The catcher they acquired in the Duvall trade. A really nice fit potentially alongside Patrick Bailey. I mean, Rodriguez is a bat control guy. He's a right-handed hitter, has hit 307 in the minor leagues. Problem for him right now, his shoulder's bugging him. He's not able to catch. He's limited to DH duty. So Giants are not sure if that's going to change this season. He might be someone who is not able to physically catch the rest of this year. And obviously, if that's the case, not going to see him because they have enough DH types. But if he can catch it, it'd be nice to let him get his feet wet. Another thing I've looked at just in terms of what they can accomplish, this is scaling back. This is protecting guys for 2026. It sounds crazy to say this at this time, but they actually have a pretty good head start next year just because they have Logan Webb, they have Robbie Ray, they have Landon Root in the rotation. So that's a good top three. It's especially a really good top two, and that gives you a chance against anybody. But Logan Webb recently 3 starts through 317 pitches over 3 starts, including those 2 against Pittsburgh. He threw 86 on Sunday, so they have scaled back a little bit already. I wrote this last week, and since then they've already gone, okay, that's a little crazy what we're doing with Logan right now. He's still in his prime. I think Logan, he wants 200 strikeouts. He can lead the league in innings again. He is a veteran. He gets to choose what he wants to do the rest of the year, but probably a good idea for him to have more nights like 86 pitches than 110 or wherever he was headed some of those games. Robbie Ray threw 113 in his last start, his most since Tommy John. He's going to be here next year. So, another thing they can do down the stretch is just make sure Robbie is in a good place heading into next season. And then Landon Roop, he had the elbow injury, missed some time. He has doubled his big league innings total from last year. The Giants feel like he's okay innings wise because he did miss that time. He's a big, strong kid. They feel like he'll be fine, but would be smart to watch him as well. We've seen Eric Miller who's had a setback here, so want to make sure that the same doesn't happen with Landon Roop and that he's in a good position going into next season. And then just the last thing I had is one thing they can accomplish down the stretch here. This is really simple. Just be more entertaining. They're drawing 35, 38, 40,000 every home game. There's only so much you can do to entertain when you're not driving in runners and things like that. But I think one thing we saw in the race series was they were more aggressive on the bases. They were running more. They were trying to steal more bases. They've only been caught once in like the last 7 weeks. They just don't run a whole lot. There was a stretch since June 25th through Friday where they had not been caught. But they had only attempted 9 stolen bases. So it's a team that's not attempting to run. That's one thing they can do to try to juice this a little bit and be more entertaining is run more. They did that against the Rays. You saw Willie Adames be really aggressive as well. So that was good to see. I think that's just a better brand of baseball and something that it's going to be at least more entertaining to the fans who are still showing up. And that's the real issue here. I mean, they're getting huge crowds. They're up about 3,000 per game attendance wise. We've seen the interest here has been up all year, and to do what they've done at home recently has been really disappointing. And I know they've been disappointed by that, but 5, 6 weeks here left in the season. There's some things they can accomplish and try to go through some of it here. Stories on our website, NBC Sports Bay Area, talked about some of this as well. We will talk about this continually on Giants Talk with Cole and try to break down what some of this means for next year. And one more thing, people who have bought the book, I really appreciate it. Have a couple book signings coming up in the second half, and hopefully one that is very easy for people to get to if you were a Giants fan. So, working on those, I will promote those as well. But thank you to everybody who has bought it. Thank you to everybody who watches here. Hopefully, you find some reasons to be entertained over the next 40 games or so.